everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and we're just going to talk quickly about the MCU and the fact that due to the ongoing issues with this COVID-19 virus, we've seen throughout the whole industry and throughout whole life really, events getting cancelled, postponed, rescheduled. It's just the ongoing nature of the way current affairs have to happen now, in order to quarantine and lock down and stop the spread of the virus. So we're seeing all these kind of franchises and events that we're used to getting cancelled all over the place. So focusing on movies now, one of the big properties being the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As we all know, this has been probably the most successful, prolific franchise ongoing now since 2008, debuting with Iron Man, right? And it's just been a wave of constant success, introducing all these new and fresh characters within the Marvel universe onto the screen for mainstream audiences to enjoy alike, as well as, for the most part, I think, pleasing the fans and staying truthful enough to the source materials. Changes have been made here and there, but in general it's been just a juggernaut of a franchise, and it just been going from strength to strength really, peaking of course with Avengers Endgame becoming the most successful box office film of all time. So as we all know, Marvel announces these new planned movies in a state of phases, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and we originally had the phase 4 announcements back in last summer of 2019 at the San Diego Comic-Con, when they announced both the movies were going to be integrated with the series that were due to debut on the Disney Plus streaming service, the likes of Loki and WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? Later on, we would also get the likes of Moon Knight and Miss Marvel and She-Hulk, and no dates have been officially announced for those projects yet. But that was the whole kind of slate of the Phase 4 movies going on throughout. Now, due to this COVID-19 issue that we're having here, Marvel have had to kind of restructure and rechange the dates of these projects going forward. So we're just going to talk about those in general and what it means for the films going forward, and whether it will kind of have any effect on how successful those projects will be in the future. So we go on here, and the most notable one, of course, was Black Widow. As we all know, I've covered this in several videos already. It was due to come out on May the 1st of this year. They kind of postponed it at first. They didn't initially make an announcement, but due to the ongoing fact of the rising number of cases, particularly in America, they just realised that May the 1st wasn't a viable date to release. So they've changed that now, and that's going to be released on the 6th of November 2020. That has taken the date of the Eternals, which was originally to be slated on the 6th of November 2020. That has now moved to the 2nd of February on 2021. And yeah, the Eternals, basically this group of space beings created by the Celestials, and their story of course takes place way beyond the current events of the MCU. So a bit like Black Widow, it's going to be a kind of prequel, and we're going to see how these group of superheroes came together and their origin story, and then at the end of the movie I'm sure it will lead into current events and the current continuity of the MCU. So yeah, I've always been just interested to see how this will take place, because this is going to be the first new characters, isn't it, within the Phase 4, because Black Widow we know about already, and other projects already established characters, but this is, if you like, another major roll of the dice, in the same way that the Guardians of the Galaxy was, where you're telling a story about beings from a cosmic universe or taking place in a cosmic universe, and they don't have that, if you like, earthbound storyline to kind of feed off and give familiar ground and build their way up from there. So yeah, it'll just be very interesting to see how successful this will be, and you've got a huge cast of characters throughout, and can it kind of, again, prove that Marvel can introduce a diverse, different type of characters, no matter how obscure they are or how unknown they are, can they repeat that formula? So that's the real kind of interest I've got of Eternals right now. And again, we've yet to see real kind of footage or any trailers as such. So I know they've kind of wrapped up production on here, and they're just kind of now probably in post production, but that'll be in delay as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop on that. So we then have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. That was scheduled originally for the 12th of February 2021. That's moved forward now to the 7th of May 2021. So we normally regard May as really the opening of the blockbuster season, even though really for the last kind of 5 years that's kind of shifted now, where kind of movies can be an event any type of the year, whether it's February or October or November. But I think that might actually help Shang-Chi. Again, what will determine that a lot is, if you like, the Asian box office and the Chinese box office, whether the theatres would be due to open. We'd like to think so by May 2021. We'd like to think so. We know that China did try to reopen their theatres and then had to close them down again. So there's reports I'm reading now that they've hit the peak of the virus and they're kind of declining in the case, and they're slowly coming out of it. So again, we'd like to think by 7th of May 2021 Chinese theatres will be open, because that's really going to be the kind of major success that Shang-Chi will be looking to exploit its box office from on that date as well. So that'll be interesting going forward for Shang-Chi. Doctor Strange, the sequel, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, was scheduled for the 7th of May. That's now been moved forward to later on to the 5th of November 2021. Again, I'm not worried about this as such, because I think everybody likes Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. They liked him a lot in Infinity War. You know, they really showcased his powers and, you know, his prominence really well, I felt, in Infinity War. So I think the Multiverse of Madness, regardless of where it's going to be released, was going to be a success anyway. Particularly now they're going to delve more into like the multi-dimensions and the different realms, and, you know, really tap into more the Doctor Strange, its mystical powers, and whether they'll delve more into the horror elements. You know, a plus point and a negative point. The negative point was, of course, that the original director of the first movie, Scott Derrickson, of course, had been replaced, but that replacement was by Sam Raimi, who, of course, directed the first two Spider-Man movies and also American Beauty and Darkman as well. So he has those very much of those comic book sensibilities. So that was kind of like a major recovery win for that project after losing the original director. So I'm not too worried about that. Doctor Strange Multiverse, they're changing the release date. I think that's going to be a major hit regardless. We also have the Spider-Man 3 Untold Project, scheduled, I believe, now for the 16th of June 2021. So obviously that's going to continue the events from Far From Home. Again, not worried that's going to be a major success. I'm sure that'll grow close to $1 billion again. You know, Far From Home, which I liked. I thought that was good. It was probably on the same par as Homecoming. The special effects were great. The Mysterio characterization was good and bad in parts. So it'll be interesting to see what villain they introduce for this third installment, and how are they going to pick up, of course, from that end credit sequence. I won't spoil it just in case no one hasn't seen Far From Home, but that was a very much of a very pivotal moment, the end credits sequence. So how are they going to follow on from that in his third movie going forward? But again, in terms of box office success, no worries with that. Like I said, that's going to be a major success going forward. And again, that's going to be another project that's going to be forwarding the continuity of the MCU. It's not going to be a prequel story, isn't it? Like Far From Home was the first steps after the events of Endgame. Okay, so that'll be very interesting to see what direction they take with those. And then, of course, we have Thor Love and Thunder, originally scheduled for 5th of November 2021. That's now been moved to the 28th of February 2022. So, again, very interesting here. As we all know, Natalie Portman's going to be returning as Jane Foster, and they're going to be adapting the female storyline from the recent comics where, of course, Jane Foster, she was suffering from cancer, but then she takes on Mjolnir and becomes the female Thor version. Tessa Thompson will be returning as Valkyrie, and I believe the Guardians of the Galaxy will be making an appearance in this as well. Taika Waititi, who directed Thor Ragnarok, will be returning, and this is always a project I'm a bit worried about. First of all, because I didn't overly like the comedic tone within Thor Ragnarok. I think, you're adapting one of the most, if not most serious, if you like, apocalyptic story arcs from that comic, and they did make it a lot of a comedy at times. They had these big events, but they just lost their kind of high stakes and their jeopardy because of the constant comedic undertone, which I think hindered the movie a lot and took away a lot of the seriousness and the impacts that movie should have had. So the fact that we're going to be kind of returning those sensibilities again has me a bit worried. We all know that Christian Bale is coming into this project as well, and I believe it's going to be cast as a villain in some sort of role. So that'll be interesting to see, because as we know, Christian Bale was normally a very serious, if you like, that kind of method type of actor. So if we're going to be introducing the kind of comic sensibilities in this installment, how is Christian Bale going to adjust to that kind of tone, right? Because we don't normally really associate Christian Bale as a comedic actor, do we? Right? So that's going to be very interesting to see. And also, how involved will Chris Hemsworth for, is he going to be a supporting character, which is what I'm worried about, or is he going to be the mainstay character? And if we're going to see the Lady Thor, is it just going to be a kind of subplot where she only has Mjolnir maybe for the first quarter of the film, and then Chris Hemsworth Thor takes it back for the remaining? So yeah, we'll see how that gets on. But again, that's going to be a major success for Ragnarok. Despite it being my least favourite of the trilogy, was actually the most popular of the 4 movies. So I'm sure that's going to be a big hit as well. No worries about it. So we're going to Black Panther, which is going to be scheduled now for the 5th of May, I believe, 2022. Again, hugely successful original film. There've been no real overly details about the kind of villain they're going to be introducing. A lot of people are kind of hoping that we might see Storm in some capacity on here, originating from Wakanda, because at some point we're going to see these phase movies branch over and introduce the X-Men, right? Which is still a way off, of course, but we're going to see some integration going forward and bringing those characters in. And why not use these current movies and these current properties to slowly, weave those characters into the universe? So I think that's what a lot of people are hoping for, that we might see Storm in some capacity. But there's not really too much more we can speculate on Black Panther 2 as such. But again, no worries there, that's going to be a massive hit regardless. So the other announcement, of course, was the Captain Marvel 2, and that's been scheduled for the 8th of July 2022. So people were speculating, of course, why haven't we heard any sequel plans for Captain Marvel 2? Are there stuff going on behind the scenes? There's been previous articles of whether they're going to recast Brie Larson, and as we know, following on from the huge debate of the Captain Marvel release back in 2019, and following on from Brie Larson's statements and the whole, if you like, really toxic campaign against her, the internet hate campaign towards her. Just go on the internet and you'll find just hundreds of video. Basically the whole majority of the internet hates Brie Larson. I can understand the criticism from her statement, but I just think it's been way, over exaggerated, and there's lots of overkill about Brie Larson herself. So it's going to be interesting to see how Captain Marvel 2 performs, because everybody will say, well, despite the kind of criticism and the outrage, it still made $1 billion. Well, yeah, it did, but of course it was sandwiched in between those two monumental Avengers movies, Infinity War and Endgame, and Marvel. The marketing was a masterstroke, really, because it convinced us that we had to see Captain Marvel. It was this essential piece that we had to kind of look into in order to understand more about what was going to happen in Endgame. Now, unfortunately, it turned out that Captain Marvel wasn't really an essential part of Endgame. She was such a bit part player to the point when you really could have taken her out and it would have had no effect in Endgame. So Captain Marvel 2 now, they don't have that advantage, do they? They don't have that point of using or feeding off the energy and the hype of the Avengers movies. So how are they going to, if you like, reinvigorate the hype and build up the excitement for Captain Marvel 2? Because to put it bluntly or politely, it has been a divisive experiment. It hasn't taken off the way they wanted to. They wanted Captain Marvel to kind of be the new leader of the Phase 4, taking over from Robert Downey's Iron Man. You know, she's going to be the front runner, and if you like, encourage this female kind of initiative where we're going to see more female superheroes to the fore of the MCU. But of course, that only works if your characters cross over well with audiences. And I think we can safely say that Brie Larson's Captain Marvel hasn't fully transcended well over to your audiences, right? So this sequel is going to be very important if we're going to see her take on this role as the leader of the MCU going forward into Phase 5 and Phase 6 and beyond, right? So they really have to kind of make an effort. I think the problem with the first Captain Marvel movie was it was just very underwhelming. It just very much felt like a Phase 1 movie, you know, the fact that you were dealing with the Kree and the Skrulls and the kind of the supreme intelligence. You had all these fascinating aspects and concepts, but they just didn't exploit or expand on those concepts the way I felt they should have done. You know, they kind of kept it grounded and had her, Carol Danvers, working with Nick Fury and Agent Coulson, and they kept it quite an Earth-based tale, when I think you should have gone all out and had a lot of it or in outer space, or focus a lot more on the cosmic elements, really kind of make this huge expansive space adventure, and they didn't really do that. So I would like to see them focus more on the cosmic elements, but they may want to ground her more and have her more in the present day setting. And again, if they want to have her as the leader of the MCU going forward, that's the kind of strategy they may want to initiate going forward. So we'll see. It's very interesting to see what they will do with Captain Marvel 2 and how they will handle that, because I think it's very important, you know, because as we know, we've lost certain of the established characters, Iron Man, Captain America. We presume that Black Widow may be Scarlett Johansson's last appearance in that character. For Love and Thunder may be Chris Hemsworth's last appearance as that character. You know, a lot of these actors, their contracts are now coming to an end. So if you want to push forward with this, you really need Captain Marvel to be a success. Tom Holland, as we know, this Spider-Man project is going to be his last one under the current deal. And Sony, as we know, are looking to build their own Spider-Man verse, of which Holland is contracted to be a part of. So you really need Captain Marvel. You know, if you want her to be this leader, you need Captain Marvel 2 to really be a success financially, and more important, critically, right? You need her as a character to really transcend and connect forward with audiences on there as well. So that's really, if we're looking at Phase 4 or Phase 5, that's going to be, I think, the biggest challenge. Like I said, other projects, Black Widow and Doctor Strange, Love and Thunder, already established, they're going to be surefire hits. Eternals is going to be a big challenge. I think Shang-Chi will feed a lot of the, like I said, the Asian and the Chinese box office. But I think Captain Marvel 2, that's going to be the big kind of challenge. If they can kind of, again, get Brie Larson to connect more with audiences, then that will be a major kind of achievement going forward on there. So that's really the overall views of the rearrangement of the MCU's Phase 4 on there. I don't think there was going to be such a worry when we can reopen theatres again. Marvel knows pretty much what they're doing on here. And again, the advantage of having these phases, you can kind of judge each movie's success. And if the movie doesn't do as well as what you perceived it to be, then you can work and make sure, in terms of your marketing and promotion, that the movies following that can be successful as well. And then you can build on the momentum going forward as well. So, yeah, I still enthused about the Phase 4. I know there's kind of been a mixed reaction to it. You know, some people aren't as enthusiastic by the likes of the Eternals and Shang-Chi, but that's been the secret of the MCU, right? Taking unknown, lesser characters or lesser properties and bringing them into the spotlight of the mainstream audiences. That's been the foundation, if you like, of their success. So they've kind of got to repeat that formula going forward, right? So it's a challenge, but at the same time, the brand's name, the familiarity of the MCU now is, like I said, the most prolific thing within cinema now. So they've always got that recognition amongst fans who are at the very least going to give these projects a fair chance and go to watch them when cinemas open. So yeah, I still feel Phase 4 is going to be successful. And then of course we're going to lead on later on with other news of Ant-Man 3 and other projects as well, like I mentioned with Moon Knight and the She-Hulk and the Miss Marvel as well. So yeah, so like I said, very promising outlook, I think, still for the MCU when we can eventually get over this whole COVID-19 outbreak and start feeling safe again to go back into cinemas. I still believe that these projects will always go into theatrical release. I don't think we're going to go to streaming as such. I know there was this whole debate about Black Widow, but I'm glad to see that they are going to release it in theatres now. And yeah, I think that's the best way forward on that. So there's been no further news about the streaming shows when they're going to be released, but I'm sure we'll hear that in the future as we get more updates. But that's my overall thoughts. What do you think? Are you still excited for Phase 4? Do you think this rescheduling will affect some movies more positively than it will other movies? Or are you not worried? It's Marvel, it's the MCU. Like I said, everybody knows them, everybody's familiar, and for the most part still loves and recognises the achievement of the MCU. So regardless of what dates you shift these movies to, they're always going to be a success regarding that. So yeah, so let me know what you think in the comments below. Please subscribe and like and continue to grow this channel as I'm trying to. And yeah, continue to keep your safe distances, wash your hands and take care of yourselves. And I will see you very, very soon.